how do we tell the difference between those parts of Paul's teaching which are timeless and those parts which are culturally specific? And I imagine somebody, for example, may be referring to head coverings and women and men and so on.
Yeah,
how do you distinguish between what Paul is asserting as something that modern, or at any period of Christian living, people should embrace, and those things which were so culturally specific we can dismiss them?
Yeah. It's a good question, but there's a level underneath the question, because people often used to say that some parts of the Bible are timelessly true and others are merely culturally conditioned. And to that I want to say all the Bible is culturally conditioned. All the New Testament is written in first century Greek. The doctrine of justification means what it means within the world of Second Temple Judaism, within the world of Fourth Ezra, within the world of the Dead Sea Scrolls, etc. Until you've thought your way through that, you're not in a position to understand. So justification is true, but it's not timeless. The quest for timeless truths has an uncomfortably Platonic sound to it. God's truth is incarnate truth. I am not a timeless person, nor are you. What good would a timeless... I want a truth that'll come real in my life, and you get that from stuff that was coming real in the first century.
Even though Paul himself refers to God's word being truthful itself.
Yes.
He imputes...
yes, but true... I mean, but well, this is a philosophical discussion we perhaps shouldn't get into, but take an obvious example. 1 Corinthians 8 through 10 is about food offered to idols. This is not a problem that most modern Christians have. And actually, the Galatian problem, should you or shouldn't you get circumcised, is not... I've never ministered in a congregation where that's been an issue.
No.
And yet, there are some, if you were ministering to a mixed Jew and Gentile congregation, say in the Middle East, that might be an issue, and you might have to do some work on that. However, the question of how to live as a faithful monotheistic Christian in a polytheistic society where there's all sorts of stuff which goes with idolatry, and how to navigate that is a huge and important question in our society, even though it doesn't consist of people offering sacrifices at pagan altars where the meat that then gets sold on into the market down the road. So that's something which... There may be areas where that still goes on and where you have to navigate it, but for most of us, we can, I think, make the translation reasonably easily. For the women's head covering, it's interesting because the arguments Paul uses are harder to understand than the command itself. It seems to me clear that he wants women, when leading in worship, to look like women and not like fake men. He doesn't want, in other words, a kind of androgynous sense of who they are. You celebrate being female, and in that society you wear head covering. Now, I grew up in churches where most of the women still wore hats, which were not at all like the sort of head coverings Paul had in mind, didn't fulfill the same function, but be that as it may, now that's more or less gone out of the window in most churches. So we are navigating it again, and part of our problem with that is that Western society at the moment has got very, very confused about what male and female actually mean and what roles mean, and do we stereotype or don't we? So that we're not in a position to look back at Paul and say we've got it right and you didn't. However, it's important to, I was going to use the word distill, which is a difficult word because that implies this sort of boiling off of timeless truths, which I'm a bit worried about.